Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the next edition of Chat with a Cop. Today we have a special couple of guests for you. Our investigative unit, we have Corporal Chad Gorman, and we also have Investigator Richard Roach. They're going to be talking to you guys about investigations, what they do for investigations, how long they've worked here, and they're probably going to give you some tips on how to stay safe in today's world with what's going on, especially in the town right now. So it will start with Corporal Gorman. Why don't you introduce yourself to the world and tell them how long you've been an investigator, what you do, and more about yourself.
Okay. I'm Corporal Chad Gorman. I've been in law enforcement for 9 years now. I just moved over to the investigations division in March of this year, so I'm still fairly new to this world, but that's why I've got wonderful people like Investigator Roach here that I get to work with. So, passing it off.
All right, Investigator Roach, why don't you introduce yourself?
Detective Roach with the Garner Police Department. Obviously, I've been here for about 20 years. As law enforcement, 16 with the town. Worked in Maryland for 4 years prior to coming down to North Carolina. I've been in investigations about 6 years, so I'm considered a senior detective, not just with time served, but with age.
Especially the age.
Yes.
Very good. So we have a couple of guys here that are obviously very smart. They know what they're doing. So we'll go back to the corporal. We're going to put him on the hot seat. So would you explain to everyone what you do in your role as the corporal for our CID, our investigations unit?
I'd like to know this too.
So as the corporal, I am kind of the assistant supervisor over this division. We still have a sergeant that is assigned to investigations as well. I assist him with some of the admin things. So as some of the other guys get in supplements and add to their case files, I help with the review of those things and kind of the management for the progress of the cases. And when it comes time to close out cases, I help with the case reviews and make sure that everything is in order before we're able to close out some of the cases. In addition to that, I do have my own caseload as well. Myself and the sergeant are still very much active investigators as well.
So you supervise things?
I do help supervise, but I also actively investigate as well.
Awesome. Very cool. We'll move on down the line to Investigator Roach. Investigator Roach, can you tell the world some of the types of cases that you've investigated in your 6-year tenure with the Garner Police Department?
Well, we start out, since we're a relatively small department, we have about 5 investigators at any given time with supervision, of course, and so we're considered general, but we have some of us do some specializations. Right now I'm doing property crimes for like residential, commercial burglaries, and prior to that, when I first came aboard, I did special victims. So I started out doing child pornography cases, sexual assaults, things of that nature. And now basically do a lot of follow-up on incidents that happen within the town, some of the businesses and residences that get broken into, and work hand in hand with the patrol officers. So.
Oh, very cool. So when you guys work, what kind of schedules do y'all? Because I know it can be kind of crazy, right? So you can be called in after hours. So you guys are on call, or how does that work?
So we have a couple different schedules in general investigations. I work 5 days a week. I work Monday through Friday, 8.5-hour shifts. Some of the other people like Roach and a few of the other investigators work 4 10-hour days a week. And then in addition to that, we have an on-call schedule as well, where we usually, by breaking it up with all the different investigators, we usually end up with about 4 to 6 days of on-call every month, where, yes, if there's something that happens basically after our normal shift, we can be called back in by patrol to come in and start actively investigating it at any time.
All right. Now, I know we've all in this room right now seen these cop or investigative TV shows, right? CSI Miami, New York, all those other things. So, with y'all being real investigators, allegedly, can we tell the world that it is not quite what it seems like on TV? For example, how many times have you heard, can I get the fingerprint, or can you get the fingerprint ran and identify the suspect like by tomorrow, right?
Right.
Yeah. Does that happen like that?
Well, you see more of it when I worked the road. I would see more of that because I was one of the guys on the squad that had the fingerprint kit, and you go out there and you dust, you get what you could, and some of them, they'll tell you that they've seen the shows, and they I guess their expectations are a little bit different than what reality would say. We we work with CCBI, City County Bureau of Investigation, and if we don't do it ourselves, they'll come out and process the scene for us. And we're kind of lucky with that in Wake County that we have that access to a division like that, because I don't believe Johnson County or some of the surrounding
rural
places
counties, they don't have access to that stuff, do they?
No.
When I worked for Wilson County for 5 years before I came to Garner, and anytime we'd have a crime scene, we had to do everything from fingerprints to photographs to logging all the evidence and all that CCBI is awesome about doing here in Wake County. It is an incredible tool to have.
And one day we may have CCBI come on our show and kind of talk with you guys a little bit more in more depth about what they do. But let's build off of the fingerprinting, because fingerprinting is it's very important to solving some crimes, because they can help identify individuals that may have been either involved in the crime or at least at the crime scene that probably shouldn't have been. So let's talk a little bit more about that, because one of y'all care to jump on and kind of tell the world how that happens. So once a fingerprint has been lifted from a crime scene, where does it go? Like, how does that happen?
Where does it go? A lot of times CCBI, when they come out, they have the lift print cards, and they'll have from different parts of the crime scene, they'll list on that card where those prints were lifted from. They take it. They have a lab at their facility that strictly it goes into, I guess it's called APHIS, and what that's acronyms for, I probably couldn't tell you right now. But they go and they so if the subject's in the system's been arrested before, be it state, local, national, they'll run it through the database, and it can come up with a hit. And a lot of times, in situations like if we have a person crime, be it a rape or a robbery, there can be a quicker turnaround on that. They'll take it from the crime scene, put that right in for analysis, and sometimes you'll get a hit pretty quick. And there's also what we can do as well is, if in the course of the investigation, if you don't get the prints don't come back to anybody, but then you can develop a suspect through your investigation. You can always, if they're from maybe another state or something like that, you can put in a request to have their fingerprints go in through the system and see if there's a match. So it's happened a few times.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Very cool. So we do have a lot of technology nowadays that wasn't necessarily available, some years back. So not just fingerprints, but of course now we have in-depth DNA that we can run. And I know that has helped solve a lot. Not necessarily for us per se, but I know it's helped solve a lot of cold cases. It's even exonerated people who are wrongly convicted, which is a very important and amazing thing. Since y'all investigate crimes, and we've seen an uptick in certain kinds of crimes in this area recently, not violent crime, but property crime. And you said you do property crime investigations. What are some things that our viewers or the town citizens or anyone for that matter can do to keep themselves safer? Just simple things that they can do to avoid becoming a victim of a crime.
The biggest thing for the property crimes that people can do is just make sure they lock their doors. The most common trend we see is with motor vehicle break-in and enterings is that the criminals will literally just walk around and pull on door handles until they can find a door that is unlocked, and they take their easy targets. On top of that, we've got signs up in parks and stuff like that that point you in the right direction as well. You know, don't leave valuables out in plain sight. Lock your doors, stow your belongings, and if you do happen to find yourself in a position where you might see something out of place or something that doesn't look right, a lot of times we'll get suspicious person calls for people walking through neighborhoods and things like that. You live in these neighborhoods, you're there all the time, you are very much aware of someone that is out of place in your neighborhood. You're always welcome to call and ask for an officer to come investigate a suspicious person in the neighborhood that's walking around that doesn't belong there. That helps us to solve cases as well, or to prevent crime by identifying who some of these people are. So all those things really help. We've got a kind of an uptick in the surveillance systems, the Ring doorbell cameras and those type of things with camera systems really help us to be able to identify some of the suspects in our cases, suspect vehicles. And then just as simple as if you see something that is out of place and you're in a public place, there's nothing wrong with taking a picture or recording something on your cell phone as well. That can certainly be passed along and help us as well.
What about, and this has been going on for a while, I know this happened to me a couple of times, when people call you and try and say something to the effect that you have a warrant for your arrest and you need to send money.
Oh, the wonderful frauds.
Yeah. I know I think I had a call yesterday I saw on CAD for an individual who sent money. So what should they be looking out for when that kind of call comes in?
So some of the more common ones that we see are those types where, like you mentioned, where you might get a call from someone saying they're from the Garner Police Department or they're from the Sheriff's Office or something along those lines, and they have a warrant for your arrest. Doesn't matter what type of warrant you have, we're never going to call you and tell you that you can give us money for a warrant to go away. That should be red flag number one. If you ever get that type of call, it's absolutely a fraud. Some of the other ones that we've seen, and Roach, I might get you to help me out a little bit as well on this one because I'm going off of memory here. One of the other common ones we see is that they'll tell you that there's an issue with one of your accounts, like Amazon or something will say that there's a fraudulent charge, and they're going to rebate you some money, and then they'll accidentally rebate you too much money, and they need you to hurry up and go get some green dot cards or whatever, one of these gift cards from one of these stores, and give them the information off of that before they lose their job, and you've got to stay on the phone with them the whole time and all this stuff. Those are our pretty classic frauds that we are seeing currently. Always remember the age-old saying that if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. There's all the scams that go around on Craigslist and those type of things of this car or boat or truck or whatever that is some ridiculously good price, but it's down in Florida, and they'll make arrangements to send it up to you, but you've got to pay them ahead of time. And yeah, if it sounds too good to be true, or if something doesn't seem right, just stop where you're at. You're always welcome to call the police department directly if somebody calls saying they have a warrant for your arrest. If you've got a situation that doesn't really seem right, stop independently, find the number for, say, Amazon, and call Amazon. Don't go off of an email or a fraudulent telephone call that you might get. Kind of go use a little bit of investigative skills yourself. And yes, if something doesn't sound or feel right, it probably isn't.
And tax time, the IRS, they're not going to call you.
That's the other one.
So, it's usually by mail, or that they'll try to get in touch with you or whatever. But anytime that, like a state agency or something is gonna, you get a phone call and they're saying they're from the state or from the federal government, don't hesitate to give us a call, because, we can always kind of lead you in the right direction, because we have, we get a fair share of all those scams that we've just been talking about. People walking in, or, people calling. You don't have to necessarily write a report. I mean, if something happens and you're concerned about it, and more than likely it's happening to other people in the city, in the city or in the state. They tend to prey on the elderly as well. So if you have relatives or people that have, suffering from mental decline, and have caretakers and stuff like that, that's also something to watch out for. We, not just with scams, but you have, people who come into, the home for, to help take care of people. Apparently, supposedly some people put themselves in positions like that to prey off the elderly. So if you, I mean, it might be shifting topics a little bit, but if it comes to, you're in charge of your elderly father's account, and he lives by himself, and there's a caretaker there because you live out of state, or you can't get there every day, and you see that there's issues with the account, or they're making withdrawals and things like that, and that's something else to be aware of, and certainly can come and contact us.
All good points. And it's important that you guys brought this stuff up, because I know me personally, they've tried to get me. They said I had to send money or they were going to cut my lights off because I hadn't paid the light bill. And I'm like, well, that's a lie. But so they'll try anything to send money. One thing that we would like to talk about now is maybe the investigator that is in charge of assigning cases and closing cases can tell what helps you decide whether to assign a case to an investigator versus sending it back to the officer who took the original report so maybe they could investigate it further. So what kind of things do you look for?
That is a very fluid question there.
It is.
There are a bunch of different factors that will go into that. A lot of times it's going to depend on the type of the case, where some of those leads are going to take us. If it's something that we've got, like the patrol officer that goes out and takes a call for a misdemeanor shoplifting, is typically going to be assigned back to the patrol officer to follow up on and see what type of leads and stuff that they can get because of the entire crime. And typically the perpetrators live in or around Garner, and they can work that entire case on the patrol side without having to be pulled away from their normal stuff. Now, if we've got some of the felony cases, Investigator Roach mentioned he does a lot of the property crimes. We've got, sex crimes, and some of the more violent offenses are pretty much automatically going to be assigned to an investigator. But we'll take some of the misdemeanor cases and stuff like that if we think that it's a case that can be solved and it might require us going out of county or investigating it a little bit further than your typical patrol officer would have time to investigate while doing their other duties as well.
All right. Yeah. So you mentioned shopliftings, especially ones that have like tags from cars that were seen leaving the scene. Something that like you said, it can be followed up on.
Right.
Versus something that, like you said, may need a little bit further investigation that the patrol officer may or may not have time to devote.
Right.
Because they're out taking calls for service and things are fluid and everything like that. So, Good point. When you guys get those cases, though, how often does it take you outside of county? Like, I guess my question is, you're not always stuck in the office, right? So sometimes you guys get cases that you work that take you, outside of Garner, outside of the county, heck, even sometimes outside of the state. So you guys want to talk a little bit about how sometimes you guys need to travel and how this isn't a 9-to-5 office job all the time?
Well, a lot of the crimes that happen within Garner are also happening in other jurisdictions surrounding us. And so we work hand in hand with a lot of the other jurisdictions, Raleigh and Durham and, Cary, Knightdale, things like that. So not only we work in, make your, working with other investigators, but, a lot of the things maybe that with property crimes in particular, if, they're stealing computers from a business or tools, a lot of times, the suspects may have a drug problem, may be short on cash or whatever the purpose or whatever the reason, and they go to different pawn shops throughout throughout Wake County or in the state. So, sometimes we'll have to go out and collect those items and things like that. So, and you have victims and you have witnesses and you have people that don't necessarily live in Garner. They might come in for the day, do some shopping, be a victim of a crime, witness a crime, and we're not going to put the onus on them to come in to us all the time. So we'll go out and see them, and sometimes we'll do surveillance, things like that. They'll take us outside because people do come to other places to commit crimes. So not always Garner residents. So.
Well, and then to expand off of that too, we do, like Investigator Roach said, we do information sharing with the other kind of local jurisdictions that are around us as well. And so we might have certain types of cases where there's a certain suspect vehicle or suspect description that matches a similar crime that happened elsewhere in the county, state, whatever. And so we'll follow up with those other agencies and work with them to help develop suspects and solve some of these crimes as well. So, yeah, it's not uncommon to have to run all over the place to follow up on some of these cases.
So networking is very important.
Yes.
Having contacts in other places, because ultimately that's what helps solve crimes.
People will say that's how I get a lot of my crimes solved, through other agencies, but
yeah, I can see why.
I thought I'd put it out there. Yeah.
Well, look, guys, I mean, we don't want to tell all the secrets on the first time we have these guys up here. So we may end up wrapping this up here just a minute. If there's any questions out there that people want to give, by all means, go ahead and submit them, and we can ask these fine officers those questions. But I just want to say I appreciate you guys coming in today. I appreciate what you guys do for us. Y'all are very important, and we do thank you for everything you do for us, especially when you give the cases to them. Not us. But seriously, though, these guys do a great job. The whole investigative division does an amazing job solving cases, solving crime. And so, but keep in mind what these guys have told you as far as lock your doors, hide valuables in your car. Please don't leave them in plain sight. Even if you lock your door, if your purse is on your passenger seat, they're probably going to smash your window and take your purse. So simple things that you guys can do to not become a victim, please do it. And if someone calls you saying they got an arrest warrant for your arrest, don't just send them money because they ask you to. Call us and we can verify that's probably not true. So, but again, thank you guys. And I think this will conclude Chat with a Cop. And we'll look out on Facebook, look out on Twitter, Instagram. Once we figure out the next date for the next Chat with a Cop, we'll have it out there, and look forward to seeing you guys again. Thanks for tuning in.